Okay, welcome back to France Pulse Lap 2, which is going to be the final discussion topic of episode 22. In the interest of time, we're trying to manage our output and manage it down a little bit because there's lots of overheads, editing, and even just lending time to do the podcast on a weekly basis. So this will be the final discussion topic for episode 22. We will carry over the discussion topic that we didn't manage to cover tonight until next week, which was SGP versus Speedway of Nations in terms of entertainment. But we'll do that next week. Okay, if you are watching, as you are likely to be, this particular discussion topic on our YouTube channel, you will be aware, or if you haven't yet, please go raking around on our YouTube channel, and you will be aware that there are hours and hours and hours of back episodes, 21 previous episodes of 360 Speedway. It goes way back about 5 months, obviously, covering quite a variety, quite a varied discussion topic range. So whether you do it now or whether you wait until the winter months when there's no Speedway to distract and entertain you, I just want to draw your attention to our YouTube channel, which has 20 plus hours, I think, of varied, entertaining, thought-provoking Speedway discussions. Right, here we are, guys. Listen, we're now in mid-September, which means there are officially at least only about 7 weeks, I think, to run until the official fixture window closes on the 2025 season. For those clubs, though, who are not involved in any playoffs or cup semis, cup finals, that's not an issue, of course. Their season is over. Their feet are well and truly up. However, for those clubs who remain involved in a cup or the playoffs, suddenly there's extra pressure to try and squeeze in and accommodate all of the remaining fixtures into an ever-decreasing window of opportunity. And what doesn't happen, of course, is the weather at this time of year begins to work against British Speedway. So I wanted to have a bit of a discussion around a subject that we are labelling trophy time mismanagement. That's exactly what we're going to talk about. Guys, this seems to be an eternal thing, an eternal and an annual thing, right? We always seem to find ourselves in the same predicament, and there's a bit of a panic and a bit of a squeeze to try and fit in some of, if not the biggest and most important domestic fixtures of the entire season. And Stuart Robson, I'm going to bring you in. From a rider's point of view, Stuart, it can't be a nice prospect when you've done all the hard yards over the season, you worked your way into the playoffs, you managed to reach a cup semi or a cup final, and then you're asked in front of a big expectant crowd to race your best speedway on a less than perfect icy speedway track, Stuart.
Yes, it's not ideal, but that's what it is. That's one of the British holidays. That's what we've always done. And when you see who's finished before September or mid-September, as a rider, that was awful, especially when you try New England and the British leagues. But I always expected that. We used to run right through till towards the end of October when I was sort of my first couple of seasons. And I remember running right till early November. Actually, we had a special dispensation. We had a meeting that came in November, and it must have been 0 degrees. It was horrendous, so cold. But yeah, no, it's not ideal. It's not perfect riding in condition, but it's one of them. You just get on and do it as a rider. It didn't really bother me too much. Obviously, I got cold in the car. I could fan around a bit to go off for the next ride, but the track conditions didn't really bother me too much. I raced motocross for a long time, so the tracks, in motocross get a lot rougher and a lot worse conditions than doing a speedway track. So I used to just get on with it and ride it. I remember riding in Workington once when the first 10 floors, so we were coming in the corner and we were skating across probably, I think it was 10 foot, 20 foot, whatever it might be, of like frozen track. And you had no control until you got past it. And then once you got past it, you were okay. But it was pretty frightening, to be honest. But again, everyone on the mix just got on with it.
Yeah, no, excuse me. I totally get it, Rob. It's just imperfect from a rider's perspective, from a supporter's perspective, and from the club's perspective. Lawrence, I think I'm correct in saying that British Speedway does have a distinct awareness and has set out in recent seasons to try and avoid this predicament. So, there have been statements in the past, and when the fixture schedule comes out at the start of the season, there is an aspiration to try and conclude all of the league fixtures by early September, mid-September at the latest, and that's with a view to then allowing a sort of dedicated window to run cup finals or playoffs at least. But in practice, Lawrence, and frustratingly, we seem to fail season after season. Yet in the middle of the summer, every track has periods where there's no speedway for 2, 3, 4 weeks sometimes.
Yeah, it's quite puzzling, really. As you say, you can go back in the days of all of us guys on here. Really, we did a lot more meetings, but we obviously didn't have the playoffs and everything to fit in at the end. In what obviously, as the guy said, it was these are the worst months, so you can fall foul to the weather, obviously. But and with weeks off, meeting here, and then next week there's no meeting and that sort of thing. It's puzzling, really, why it doesn't work. I was just looking back to, again, saying our day, for instance, the 16 lap classic 1997 Ipswich here, October the 23rd.
Yeah.
I mean, that's I remember, as Robert said, getting really cold, and but we just got on with it and rode, into that long into October. Obviously, you got the fans to consider as well. What's the turnout going to be like? You got the big finale on TV as well to cater for. As I say, against the weather as well. It's going to be a challenge, whatever, really.
Stuart McDonald, it's just not good for business, right? Clubs riders work hard all year long to navigate their way to playoffs or a cup final, for example, and by definition, that's going to be the biggest fixtures of the entire season. Yet, I'm going to call it mismanagement. By mismanagement largely, they disadvantage themselves and they run on, or they're forced to run on non-optimal race nights, and certainly in non-optimal conditions. Stuart, I'll just look at it. In fairness, and I do want to acknowledge this, in the Premiership this year, the Knockout Cup fixtures started in March, right? Think about that. The final was concluded in August. The playoffs are obviously happening as we speak. In the Championship, the Knockout Cup first round in the BSN series started way back in April. The first league fixture started in May, but here we are, deep into September, and they're still to run the BSN and the Knockout Cup semi-finals and complete the playoff semi-finals. Surely the answer is relatively simple. I know this is going to make me sound like a smart arse, and I don't mean to, but surely the answer must be, as soon as the season starts, the clubs get right into league action, and focus on the league, try and conclude the league by, I'm going to say, prior to even September, try and conclude the league by, I don't know, mid-August or something like that, and then dedicate the following 6 weeks or something to some of the cup tournaments. Is that too simplistic, Stuart?
Do you know, Derek, when you were talking about it earlier on, that's what came into my head. I thought they should run the league earlier on, because we as us three riders sit here, momentum's the best way to win races in this game. And when you go 2 or 3 weeks without a meeting, and then you get a wet night, or it's maybe not suitable, the weather's bad, it can throw you off. It's unfair, because you do work hard all year, and then you can go a 2, 3, 4 week gap, and the biggest meeting of the year is on the worst night of the year, if you like, weather-wise. Fans don't want to be there, the atmosphere's not there. So 100%, Derek, I'm behind you with starting the league early, and I think finishing it early would definitely be beneficial for the sport. You know, the Speedway fans get to see the riders at the top level. They get to see them 100% racing instead of, is it going to go, is it not going to go? You know, I remember we spoke about it earlier on off air about the three of us rode in 94 in the Knockout Cup final, you know, Glasgow, Edinburgh. And I remember Edinburgh was actually a really wet night, but we grew up racing up north. We just got on with it. It was just the way it was, you know. It was nothing different to us. It was a little bit wet. You maybe spent a little bit more in tear-offs, but you just got on with it. But 100%, you know, you weren't at your best. You were worrying about the track. You were worrying about the supporters turning up. And, you know, my father goes to Glasgow every week, Derek, as you know. And I think they've had a 3-week gap, I think, was it maybe a couple of weeks ago or whatever. And my dad is, you know, he's literally saying to me, I'm pulling my hair out. I'm not going to go and watch Edinburgh, but I want to watch Glasgow. And it's having those gaps, you know, it loses interest for fans as well. So there's definitely something needs to be done, because having a competition starting and finishing at the end of the year when it's a miserable night, there's not a lot of fans there. The atmosphere's terrible. Riders are at the end of the season, they just want to get home. I think definitely 100% they should start and finish earlier and have the knockout cups, maybe the pairs, the fours, whatever you want to do after the league finishes, because let's be serious, we all want a league medal. You know, the best thing in Speedway apart from World Championships is a league medal with your club. And, you know, we all know about people getting to the playoffs and problems with injuries, or maybe cup tied, or maybe they've got to go and race in Poland. And 100%, start it earlier, get it finished earlier.
Do you know, there's a school of thought emerging that maybe British Speedway should just stand down the playoffs. Maybe that's a step too far. Maybe we just, you know, two home, two away in the league campaign, and top of the league, you know, are crowned league champions. Old school. Robbo, you know what we're talking about, or what we're proposing, and it's not rocket science, right? You know, I'm not trying to make out that we are the smartest in the class. Is a kind of front loading of league fixtures. So kick off the season, go right into league matches. I know some clubs, I know some team managers won't like that, because sometimes they like new signings or new riders to settle in for a few weeks, and potentially it gives them a longer window to assess riders and even make changes. You know, sometimes teams are quite ruthless in the early weeks of a season, but before the league gets underway. But I think, you know, I guess what I'm canvassing for is some prioritisation to the league fixtures right from the off, and you know, try and march our way through them. No gaps during the summer, and manage those fixtures when the weather's going to be better, and clubs are more likely to be able to run on their traditional optimal race night. It can't be much harder in terms of management than that, Rob, surely.
No, it's something I'd like to think that was considered, but whether it happened, I don't know. Like you just said, though, people like to make changes. People like to see how riders going to settle and what they're going to do and what they think they're going to produce. So, yeah, it's a good idea. It's a great idea, of course. And it would be brilliant if that happened, and it avoided the 2, 3, 4 week gaps in home meetings, like was mentioned. I think we mentioned this the other week. It's something I don't really, I don't see the point of it. Maybe there's a reason for it. I don't know what that is, though. When I was back in, when I was racing, I don't remember. Towards the end of my career, it started to happen, but early days and right up to sort of probably 2010, maybe just after, I don't remember having like weeks and weeks without home meetings. It might have happened, I don't know, maybe I just can't remember it, but we used to have home meetings every week for the most part. And yeah, just let's, like you said, let's do it. Run the league, get that sorted. The playoffs, I quite like the playoffs. It's a good finale to the end of the league. So it's a good thing, I guess, in a way. But maybe you could go back to old school ways and just put the top of the league is the winner. And the playoffs could be I think I've always thought this. Playoffs should be a separate competition, really.
Yeah.
Because you win the league. We did it with Rye House the year back in 2005, when I went to Rye House. We won the league, and then we lost in the playoff final to Kings Lynn. I didn't actually ride in the final. I got injured, and so I missed out on it. But we weren't, I don't know, we might have been kind of league winners, but we weren't league champions, so to speak. But I think there should be possibly a separate competition for the playoffs, top four. This is a top four team playoffs competition. And then run the cups and like pairs or fours or whatever it might be. But yeah, definitely wouldn't be a bad idea.
Lol, I just wonder whether, in recent seasons or, maybe in the last decade or so, is the fact that more and more speedway riders who race in Britain, they're more internationally mobile, right? So more and more riders now ride in Poland or Sweden or Denmark or Germany or France or several other leagues besides. And I just wonder whether, and I'm being fair here to the fixture planners, I just wonder whether that rider mobility and the additional commitments that riders take on, I wonder whether that in some way limits their availability, and that is part of the reason why clubs tend to have periods where they don't run fixtures, because behind the scenes they know that they can't track certain riders. Do you think there might be something in that, Lawrence?
Yeah, that's true. I think that must be the case in some clubs, because you need the fans want a fixture every week, don't they? Around here, Thursday night was Speedway night, Ipswich, and it was week in, week out, and people, like I said, the fans, they want regular Speedway. They want to go every week. Some people would miss a week or two, and that's it. They lose a bit of interest. Some don't go back, but there must be some sort of logistical problems they have with riders, availability and with overseas commitments and where they live and flying them in and out and all. It must be quite a nightmare with that. But just another thing that actually came across my mind was maybe some of the clubs that don't make the playoffs, if they get their fixtures in quite early and get them all over and done with, their season's sort of over. Start of September, they're done. That's it. Like I say, back in the day of us guys, we doing 40, 50 meetings a year. We were deep into October and the cold. But so we had to fit them, and we had to have a weekly night to fit everything in. So as I say, some clubs, what do they do at the end? You got that to think about as well.
Well, possibly, Lawrence. Listen, I'm not saying this is the perfect answer, but at a sort of high level, if we march on with and focus on the league fixtures from March, April, right? We start with the league fixtures. We push through. And by and large, we've completed the league fixtures, let's say in August. That would then allow a dedicated September, maybe even into October, in fairness, to focus on doing the cup matches. So some of those teams that you're talking about who didn't have a great league season would still have potentially the cup fixtures to look forward to.
Yeah.
Big match.
Maybe they put individuals on and other challenges, that sort of thing.
Exactly. Stuart McDonald, listen, as is always the case, I'm 100% certain all the fixtures will successfully be accommodated. but there are some clubs, and I'm going to mention Glasgow as one of them. Redcar, Poole might be in the same boat off the top of my head. Glasgow still got to race 2 cup semi-finals, possibly two cup finals, and a playoff semi, and hopefully a playoff final. That's a whole different conversation. So the Glasgow have up to a maximum of 6 home fixtures to shoehorn into the remaining 6 or 7 weeks of the traditional season. Now Glasgow are in a fortuitous position where they can, because they own their own stadium, we can move the race night to accommodate and make that happen. But to my earlier point, and Glasgow have done this in recent seasons, a Monday night, a Tuesday night, a Thursday night, deep into October, running a cup final or something isn't what Glasgow would want to have to do from a business point of view.
No, definitely not, Derek. You know how big the fan base is at Glasgow, and if you were told you were going to Glasgow on a Tuesday night, it's been raining all day, it's a bit miserable, you're midweek, you're at your work, it's not ideal, 100% it's not. And I think the fact that they've still got, it's obviously because of how well they've done this year, they've got 6-7 matches left, and we're getting into possibly the worst time of the year for weather. We're all talking about October, November, how difficult it is to run meetings, and to run 6 or 7 meetings in 6 or 7 weeks is going to be tight. Robbo touched on it earlier on. When we rode back in the day, Derek, there was that many teams that you had no respite right up to the end of mid to the end of October, and now that the clubs have obviously, we've lost a lot of clubs for British Speedway, and the leagues have halved, and having these gaps and breaks, it's not healthy for Speedway. It's not healthy, and 6-7 meetings left to go for Glasgow, albeit it could be a fantastic season, if they win them all, and they could be really successful. But there's a lot of pressure there for riders as well, because there's other countries that's finishing their seasons off as well. You've got Poland, you've got Sweden, the Danes as well. So you've got these people as well that are finishing their seasons off. And listen, we all know that Sweden can be every bit as difficult for the weather situation as the UK, and they have the same similar problems as well. So it's difficult to get as many matches fitted in at the end of the year with the weather, the conditions, the situation. But like I said, with Glasgow, they're fortunate enough they could probably run 3 nights in a row if they had to, just to get it done, which is a fantastic position, which is fortunate for the Glasgow fans to have the facilities, but definitely I think it needs to be looked at and readdressed the way it runs.
Robbo, Stuart mentioned it there, in yesteryear, back in the day, as we like to talk about and reflect on, there were more clubs. The league calendar, or the domestic calendar, including cups, was a bit more compressed. Well, not compressed. It was a fuller calendar, right? So there was almost a home meeting every week, absolutely every second week, without fail. And yes, weather still intervened, and I can still remember, cold October evenings, watching the final league match of the season, or whatever it might be. That was in the era before playoffs, of course. But I just wondered if, boil everything down that we've been talking about today. I just wondered if the secret to this, the success to changing this particular perennial issue that Speedway has, is literally just to crack on from the start of the season, March, April. You crack on with league fixtures. Yes, you fit in your cup rounds and things as well, at some point, and just literally try and be disciplined and try and be focused about it. And if that means even mid-season, in the height of summer, that clubs occasionally have to have an off race night to catch up with other clubs in terms of fixture progress, that surely has got to be better, purely because of the weather at that time of year, than trying to do that, trying to be that dynamic at this time of the year when everything is just imperfect.
Yes, it is. It's great if you can do that, but not all clubs have the luxury of being able to run on and off race nights. I mean, it's probably a lot more difficult because with Beansty, they don't own the stadium. They don't have control over when they run as much as what the likes of Glasgow do, and one of the two other fortunate clubs, the likes of Redcar. I'm not sure if it's true in the same boat. Kings Lynn certainly are. They can run pretty much any time, but it's having a running off on and off race night can really affect the financial side of the club, because the crowds don't come. They're at work or whatever. They used to come and run that Thursday night or Monday night or Sunday, whatever night it might be, and that is that race night. So if all of a sudden you run an off night on a Tuesday or something, it becomes very difficult for the clubs. I mean, it would be great if they were in a position where they could just run any night, and the crowd will come. It would be fantastic. We're obviously a long way from that stage at the moment.
And I think, and I said it earlier on, in fairness, I think British Speedway has set out with that objective and that intent, but year after year, we never seem to hit the mark. We're always chasing our tail at this stage of the season. Big Mac, I'll leave the last word to you. Just an observation, and I might be wrong. Tell me if you think I am, but Denmark, Sweden, Poland, they don't ever seem to get into this particular predicament. In Poland in particular, all their league fixtures pretty much run in sync. You don't have any club who are more than one fixture behind the rest of the league, Stuart?
What can you say, Derek? I know that the Polish tracks, a few of them have got the roofs, haven't they? A few of them have got the roller roofs, I think. But again, I think it's down to the way it's run, the way that it's managed. But you're right. I think I've watched a couple of the Swedish elite matches where they have been rained off on the Tuesday, which is the race night, and then they're on the Wednesday, and it's done and dusted right away. You don't see it dragging on for weeks. And I think the same with Poland. I think there was a league match on a Sunday recently and it ran in the Monday.
Okay.
So again, like Robbo says, they've got the luxury of having the stadium, they own the stadium, they've got the luxury of being able to run the next night, and that's where maybe the problem lies in the UK. Glasgow can run the next night, Swedish clubs can do it, but some of the clubs that rent the stadiums are given dates, like Carl Johnson said, we're at the mercy of the landlords. And unfortunately, I think until British Speedway completely gets its house in order, it's like Donkey said, all these clubs abroad, the governments, the councils, they own them, they rent them back, and they back the sport in their country. And unfortunately, our government don't. We need the backing from our government. This new venture with this sports company that's been set up could be the saviour that we need, Derek. And you know what? I just hope it all happens. I really do, for the sake of British Speedway, because we're miles behind some of the other countries.
Here. There are 360 Speedsters. If you have any views, it's not rocket science and it shouldn't be rocket science. And once again, we're not trying to be smart arses on 360. But if you've got any suggestions as to how British Speedway should structure and sequence its domestic fixtures to almost guarantee that we avoid running the biggest fixtures of the domestic calendar deep into cold October nights, then we'd be interested to hear from you. Well, listen, that will conclude episode 22. We will hold over the discussion topic about Speedway SGP versus Speedway of Nations in terms of entertainment, but we will absolutely do that next week. Please be active for us. Please do continue to play a part in helping us to reach more and more Speedway fans through your social media interactions and on YouTube. And please remember, my small ask is just to routinely hit that thumbs up. Do it right now. Hit that thumbs up as you watch this discussion topic on YouTube. That small action is a massive one in terms of propelling 360 Speedway into the YouTube algorithm and the YouTube stratosphere. Stuart Robson, Stuart McDonald, Lawrence here, Jeremy Doncaster, thank you very much for your company this week. Look forward to talking more Speedway next week. Look after yourselves, enjoy your weekend, enjoy your Speedway. Take care, bye-bye.
Good night all.
Thanks, guys. Good night.